I competed in the Godot Wild Jam, where you have to build a game in a week, and I actually did better than my previous attempts. Let's get right into it. A nice little addition is the concept of wildcards that are like optional twists to your jam that can raise the difficulty or maybe even lower it if you're having a real hard time just trying to figure out what you should be building for your jam. Let's dive in on how well this jam went for me. So I had this really great idea. That's how they all start out. I was gonna make a top-down wipeout 2D style game. You choose your animal racer, you'll race from one end to the other, you'll deal with obstacles. Man, I was like, this is great. The issue I immediately ran into was, I really don't even know how I'm gonna build that. Start working on design doc, I made some assets, I created my own water and surfboard and little things, and I had a top-down view by the end of that day. Thought things were looking up. So I also, at the same time, had another really amazing, dumb idea, and that was to also partake in Pirate Software's jam. That was happening at the same time, but a week longer. I was really thinking I could do both jams. Spoiler, I ended up just sticking to the Godot Wild Jam. By the end of the day, I was working on all day on the Pirate Software jam. Honestly, I was just avoiding the Wipeout game. That's really what it was. It was a distraction away because I really didn't like the game. It just wasn't coming together. It just felt wrong. It wasn't really clicking. I felt like I needed to pivot. So I woke up feeling I'm gonna just change things up a little bit. If I can't do a top-down wipeout game, maybe I can do a platformer 2D side-scroll style wipeout game. Well, I had made progress with it, but the mechanics were appalling. There was a time I worked 2 weeks on a rigid body video, and while I understand it, the result was horrible. It didn't feel right. The character would fly off. It was just not great. And honestly, it being already Tuesday, I was kind of feeling bum about it. I was wondering how I was going to finish this by Sunday. And I'm going to work on this all the time. I only have a few hours every day during the week, more time on the weekends. Sunday at 4 p.m. being the deadline was pretty looming. So I was like, time to put this one in the trash. It's kind of, sad, but sometimes you have to throw away ideas to get to the better ones, and that's okay. Let's cut down on the difficulty. Let's throw the whole wipeout idea out. Like, we're done. That's clearly not working. What can we do about that? What if I went back to the simple platformer and then made it where you just try to get to the top of the level and kind of take in some of those body and getting over it, Celeste, Jump King kind of feels, and we'll stick with the animal theme. I had this like penguin character. Let's not worry about making other ones. I really didn't have a whole lot of time to deal with the wild card aspect, and honestly, the goal for me was to complete this. Let's make this happen. Fast forwarding a bit, as you can see, the last days were a blur. I even came up with a really good schedule. 4 hours every night, worked like 8 to midnight. I would work on the game. And it really worked out well, and it created a balance for me. I had so much fun also making this game, and that's how I knew it was working. I was building it, and I was making sure I was having fun. From snowmen that fall apart and come back together, to jumping and falling and building a jetpack that when it runs out of boost, it just flails and falls, and a strange effect where I didn't return a certain way in the movement logic, so it would just continue in the velocity. So when you boost and you fall in a slide, it'll just keep sliding, which some people didn't like. Others thought it was fun. I liked it that it had like a little bit of a challenge, so I kept it. There was one little tiny thing. I am part of a Discord group, many Discord groups. Around this time, a certain game came out, and I got quite distracted with this certain game. Should have added a little more polish. I didn't realize it at the time, but I was missing an entire category. My game, which went from Primal Surfers, the failed Wipeout game, to Primal Jump, had zero audio. No music, no sound effect, nothing, which really hurt me in the end. I could have had things that made my life so much easier. I could have had a couple of sounds in there and qualified for that category. So that's disappointing, but I know for next time. Also, I am focusing on Godot 4. I'm working on tutorials and videos of all things Godot 4 because I want to teach everyone that's working with Godot 4 how to use the newer version of it and feel comfortable with it. Now, there are some web export issues, but for the Godot Wild Jam, if you're using Godot 4, you have to submit binaries for all operating systems. That's Windows, Mac, and Linux, which is fine if you have ways to export them. I built this primarily on my Windows machine, and luckily I have a Mac laptop that I use for when I develop on the go. The coolest part is you can export to Mac and Linux when you export on Mac. So that's a win-win. And I felt like as I was exporting, I then had to make sure everything was running and uploading it to the game on itch. And I just felt like the minutes were counting down. It's like, and it was going to just hit. And I submitted like 10 minutes before the deadline. It was stressful, but it felt like a weight off my shoulders, and I felt really good with what I accomplished. It's not about winning. In fact, there's no prize for Godot Wild Jam. I think just doing the jam to be better for yourself is great. It's not about winning. It's about challenging yourself and learning something new. And if you learn something new, then you're already a winner, even if you didn't submit your game. And with that, that is one jam down and 11 more to go. Stay awesome, everybody.